Hello, and welcome to Totally Schway Flipside, a podcast about whatever the hell I want it to be about. My name is Mary.
And my name is Luke.
And it's hot.
Yeah, currently a heat wave in the UK.
Yeah.
And probably in most places, actually, because, you know, it is almost July.
Say what?
Yeah.
It is almost time to bid adieu to the hot weather in England, because we get about 2 weeks of it.
That's not true. We've had at least 3 weeks of it already.
I kid. But it used to be, like when I first moved over here in 2009, I saw the winter, like in the winter. And then the summer after that, whew, I don't remember getting a sunburn. I don't remember getting a suntan. And I do not remember it being that hot.
I remember you getting burnt, though.
No, that was 2 years after that.
Was it? Well, I remember you getting burnt over here and you going, but I could walk around in Oklahoma and it was fine.
Yeah.
Because the sun's just weirdly more intense
so
here.
Weird. Yeah, that was when I had my college friends over.
Was it?
Yeah, because my whole chest was like, the next day, I felt like Hades had spat on my chest and it created a hell of its own. Very poetic there.
Yeah, what a wonderful image there for everyone to envisage. Such a way with words.
All right, so let's talk about Pride.
So this is your Pride special as we're getting to the end of June. I had to think about what month it was.
As someone who is a part of the LGBTQIA plus community, I celebrate Pride every day because it is a huge thing in my life. Because I grew up in a place where so many people didn't like people for their religion or their sexuality or what they looked like. Luckily, I had two grandparents that were like, meh. Literally, that was their whole thing, like, meh. I might hate you at first, but whatever. And I'm lucky about that because now I celebrate people that are really decent, nice people, but I also celebrate people that have had a really hard time. And I think the queer community, especially right now, in so many different places in the world, it is just not... It feels like we've taken a step back in history, and it sucks. So I want to talk about Pride, and yeah. And by the way, I'm going to tell you one of the first things that I saw where I was like, oh my God, I love gay people. And that is the Birdcage. Oh my gosh, I think I saw this at a drive-in in Oklahoma City. I cannot remember the other films, but I just remember watching this, and I don't know if it was just a repeat of it over the summer or if it was when it actually came out, but oh my God. I was like, first off, Nathan Lane and Robin Williams. It's like, whoa. I fell in love with Robin Williams' character so much that I would go around just acting like him and everything. It was so cool. And I could not think of something that was like absolutely like pivotal in that film, because it's the whole thing. It's funny. It's charming and everything, and it's got some really amazing actors and actresses in it, and I loved it. And I think it was one of the first times that I actually saw queer, being straight up on the big screen. Because this is the 90s, and I think in the 90s it was so much more acceptable than it was before to be like, hey, we're going to make a movie about this, but they don't have to be the butt of the joke. Obviously, it can be funny, but they don't have to be, like, oh, I hated it in the 90s and 2000s when people would be like, that's so, as an insult to people. And it's like, well, no, it's not an insult. And yeah, the Birdcage was really great and iconic.
That's an interesting point you make there, because in like probably the 80s and the early 90s, there was a thing where you couldn't really have like openly gay characters unless you were either making fun of them or the story involving them was a tragedy, like Philadelphia, which is the movie with Tom Hanks as the gay man who had AIDS that was suing his the company he worked for, which is a law firm for discrimination based on his sexuality. And that was a very sad movie. And I think that because that movie was so like very celebrated, I think it won an Oscar, didn't it?
I think so. I loved it.
Probably should have checked this information out. But to be honest, I didn't think of it until what you said just a moment ago about Birdcage. But that kind of opened the door to other types of queer stories in mainstream cinema. And, you get a fairly mainstream comedy with Robin Williams and Gene Hackman.
Yes, Gene Hackman.
Yeah, I only really remember one scene of that, and that's where Gene Hackman is like a politician in this film, isn't he? And his son it's his daughter, sorry, is marrying the son of Robin Williams' character, who is a gay man who owns a gay nightclub. But he doesn't know that, and they have to try and keep the pretense up so as to not to shame the senator and ruin the relationship. Eventually he comes around, so to speak, and the scene that comes in my mind is all the press turn up at the nightclub because they've heard that the senator's there, or whatever his political role is, and he kind of has to get dressed up in drag to try and sneak out amongst all the drag queens. And I remember seeing him shuffling along in heels, thinking how funny that was.
But I love the fact that scene was in the movie, but it wasn't making fun of drag queens. It was making fun of Gene Hackman's character. And I just love that so much, because what a great introduction for me to have seen that, and to have I think it was my mom and my stepdad took us to the drive-in, and we saw that, and wow. And not have people, because in the drive-in, I don't, if any of you guys don't know, I'm sure a lot of you do, but you would turn your radio to a certain station, or you would have, if it was really old, you would have these steel speakers that you would kind of hang off the window a little bit into your car. But with the one that we went to was the radio station, and we would sit on the hood of the car, and while I was watching this movie, I just heard laughter and laughter and laughter, and I didn't hear people going whatever. And I remember my mom and my stepdad were talking about it, but they were making jokes from the movie, and it was just so funny. And it has such a great thing for me. I don't exactly know how to explain it, but it's one of those things that I am so appreciative that movie exists, because it shows that, okay, first off, it's okay to be gay.
Say what?
Yeah. And it also came out at a time where I think people were starting to become aware that they might know somebody in the community. And it's okay to ask them, and it's okay to talk about it, and it's okay to watch Robin Williams. And, it's also okay to watch Gene Hackman and drag and laugh, because it's funny. But they also became aware that it's also mean to hurt people in the community as well. And I think after that, it started to become a little bit more blinding, for me anyway, of, oh, hey, people shouldn't say those words. People should just be kind and appreciate somebody for who they are. And that movie really, really, really emphasized that. Do not hide who you are. be who you are. Because at the end of the day, you have to live with yourself. And you are the one that gets the choice to show people the real you. And that movie, I mean, Nathan Lane, come on.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah, it's funny. I remember when that movie came out, there was a lot of, like, speculation in the press that, gasp, could Nathan Lane be gay? And it's like...
Did he ever hide it?
I don't think he ever openly said it. I saw a clip, well, got ages ago, of Robin Williams and Nathan Lane were on a talk show, and one of the presenters asked Nathan Lane about his sexuality, and he just kind of went, and then Robin Williams interjected and did Robin Williams thing that distracted from it, and they moved on.
I feel that it was a George Michael type of thing, wasn't it? Like,
yeah, I mean, come on.
Yeah.
I mean, just listen to him speak.
Yeah.
And it's pretty clear.
But so around that time as well, you had, there was this song, I cannot remember the name of it, but I remember being on the radio and I heard somebody in the grocery store when they were listening on the radio, because this was just like one of those, it was, Crest grocery store, which it's not one of those name brand grocery stores. It's just, we got a big Crest and a little Crest and whatever. And I was at the little Crest.
Is it just an Oklahoma thing, Crest?
I think so. I'm not sure. That's nothing to do with this, but other than that, that's where I heard it.
Lowell Lucas Jr. is chiming in going, we have a Crest down the street from me.
Oh my gosh. Do they have the good top ramen, or do they have the one that's just like shrimp?
The Crest, the big Crest, I think it was near Crest. You. They did like a 3-foot long sandwich, which I bought, and I was going to eat as a challenge to myself. And then Mary ate like a
No, that
third
was
of
from
it.
Walmart.
Oh, was that from Walmart?
That was from Walmart.
Oh, okay. Well, we bought big sandwiches from Crest, and they were nice.
They were great.
Yeah.
They were only about 12 inches long, though.
Oh, yeah, foot long, so that's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine.
But anyway, there was this song in the mid-90s, I believe, about, it was obviously before Katy Perry came out with I Kissed a Girl and I Liked It, but it was about this woman kissing another woman, and she was like, this ain't so bad. This is all right. Can't remember the name of the song, but it was also around that time that song came out. And then I think in TV, I think because I was kind of looking for it, I was like, okay, yeah. I started to see more things, and there was this episode of Roseanne where I think it was one of the very first times I heard the word lesbian, and it was when one of Roseanne's friends kissed her, and I was like, wow. First off, love the outfit she was wearing, the friend, and that's the type of thing that was. I was very, very lucky in the sense that is what I thought when I saw that scene. Not, or, oh my God, what are they doing? I was like, oh my God, her friend has a great outfit on. Don't know if I would think that these days, because, my tastes have grown in terms of outfits. But that is how I was raised, in a sense, was like, okay, 2 girls are kissing. Big deal. Did you brush your teeth today? That was it. But it was good to hear that there was an actual word for it. It wasn't just 2 girls kissing.
Yeah.
She was a lesbian.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting how, particularly in like mainstream American culture, like lesbianism was always viewed as more acceptable than heterosexuality. Jesus, that's not the opposite. Homosexuality of men. I guess it's because like most content is made for like a male audience.
It's the male fantasy.
The male gaze, so on, and But it's kind of interesting how there are you'll see double standards, like guys will be cheering and hollering if 2 ladies kiss on the kiss cam, but if 2 guys were to do it, they'd be like, oh my God.
And you got me just like going, woo, yeah, hooting and hollering.
I think it's less of an issue these days, but definitely was in the 90s. Like, I remember they made a big deal about an episode of Ally McBeal where a woman kissed her, and there was the Ellen show as well, and even Star Trek Deep Space Nine, that had I mean, I suppose you would call it a lesbian kiss because Dax was a woman at that time, and the whole character of Dax is someone who changes gender and body all the time.
Do you know, a lot of people talk about the Ellen moment, where she goes up and she's trying to talk to Laura Dern's character, and she's like, I wanted to tell you something. I'm gay. And then she's leaning over into the microphone. That was a huge moment in the queer community. Because, oh my goodness, somebody who has their own show, the star of the show. But here's the one that gets me. The one that made a difference to me, or made more of a difference to me, because it was Rosie O'Donnell. When she actually started to be a bit more open with her, I don't think she really had a crush on Tom Cruise. Because Rosie O'Donnell had her own daytime talk show. And she would always, pretend that she had a crush on Tom Cruise. And she'd bring out, a cardboard cutout of him, so on and so forth. But when I saw her and her talk about her sexuality, for the first time, I was like, wow, how normal of a life. People are normal people. It's not like, oh my God, this person is so different because they're they have a wife or a girlfriend or whatever. It's how normal. And because, Rosie also had kids and a partner and all of that, and lived a fairly normal life outside of her, her fame. And I thought that was just awesome. And it wasn't one of those things where you look down on somebody because they're, gay or whatever. You're like, that is so freaking normal. And then I found out what the internet was. And there was a scene on her talk show, and I have no idea if it was from one of her websites or just something on GeoCities. I wanted to see either a video or a picture. And oh my Lord, I should not have done that. Because it was just filled with people not accepting something that just should, be normal. Like I was saying, to me, I was like, oh wow, that's so normal. I was expecting her to have a mansion just with a frame of jet skis, or something ridiculous like that, because, celebrities. But there were so many people online that were like, oh, I used to love her show until she came out. Or I used to I used to watch this with my family, but now she's not family friendly. And I was so young, and I was asking myself, but why? She talks about her family. I think this is after her talk show as well. But she talks about her family. She talks about musicals sometimes. She does normal things. Why wouldn't you let your family watch her stuff?
Yeah.
I didn't get it until later.
Yeah, I've never really understood the argument, if you expose kids to homosexuality, you will make them gay. Because if that was the case, then surely exposing gay people to heterosexual content, which is what most stuff on television is, and most movies are, and etc., then surely you would make them heterosexual. And yet it doesn't. So that whole argument just completely crumbles under the tiniest bit of scrutiny, and yet it still prevails among a lot of people.
So a lot of people around where I lived were older, because I wasn't really I didn't have a lot of friends, and people just didn't get me. No one really got me until I literally met you, and I had a couple of people that got a little bit of me. But a lot of people were so afraid of watching some of the classic movies, like rewatching them, some of the classic movies that they grew up with, because they found out later, after like a celebrity had died or something like that, that they were gay.
Rock Hudson was gay? What?
Yeah, that is the big one. That's the one I was getting to. Rock Hudson. I read a book. It was just, I think it was just in my grandma's room, and I had just finished like a book of Roseanne or something or whatever. And I read this book about Rock Hudson. Oh my God. I was like, this guy is so cool. Tragic, but very, very cool. And then I, again, want to know more about him. So I watched some of his movies because it's on TCM. And then, you know, his movies were quite easy to get a hold of on VHS in terms of if somebody had recorded it or not. And I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. And then I got another book. I didn't go out and buy it. My grandma actually had it. And I was wondering why she didn't finish it. And she always finished a book. That's one thing about my grandma. Once she started, it was hard to get her to stop reading a book and, you know, whatever. But she had stopped reading this one. And she had bought it about a year before I started, you know, reading it. And I read the damn book. And I understood why she stopped reading it. Because it was very, very against gay people. Like, it was very Rock Hudson, AIDS, bad. And, you know, I am not even a teenager, and I'm reading this book. Again, probably shouldn't have been reading a lot of my grandma's books back then, but I was. And for me, being born in, you know, Oklahoma, in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, where, you know, not some of the, you know, not the brightest people sometimes in terms of their acceptance, I had never heard anyone say that Rock Hudson was less than because he was gay, or he was less than because he had AIDS. But in this book, it was just so blatant that this person was a bigot.
Yeah.
And I didn't actually talk to my grandma about this, but I understood that that's probably something that she was like, yeah, I'll let her read this, but I don't want to talk to her about it because it could get too deep. Because my grandmother was a religious person, but under no circumstances did she ever, and this is from me actually speaking to her, did she ever think anyone was less than because of their sexuality. Because she had been through, she's Baptist, I think that's what it is, Baptist, something like that. And where she came from, it was very, very, very religious, like so much so that it was like every waking moment. And she didn't even think of you know, if somebody was gay or not, or that they might be less than or whatever, because it just didn't come up. Because she understood that those people that claim to be so religious, but then hate somebody else because of something they can't control, that's not the religion she, you know, was a part of. She was a part of something where they loved people. And if there were problems, they helped people. And if there were good times, they celebrated with people. And I liked that, you know, particular aspect of how my grandma's religion was. But it just felt wrong, and I felt so dirty after reading it. And here's the thing, it wasn't the last time I read a book like that, unintentionally. And it wasn't the last time I read something about that, you know, just in general. Because once you start to get older and you start to have conversations with people saying like, oh my gosh, I love classic movies so much. Monty Clift was awesome. Rock Hudson was awesome. Marlon Brando was awesome as well. They're like, oh, but they're gay. And I'm like, but why did you say but? Like, but why? Why? And then they would try to explain why they didn't think I should be watching this when they were just somebody that was in the grocery store line and they had no business telling me what I could and could not watch. Yes. And I was so disgusted when I found out that like a lot of people thought that way, because I just couldn't fathom not liking somebody because of who they are and because of their sexuality. Because it, first off, I don't hate you because you're straight. Okay, I don't, I don't call the local grocery store telling everybody that you're straight and that people should just stop and give you the evils all day. I don't do that. I would do that if you called me a name, but I wouldn't do it just because of that, if you know what I mean. So that bothers me. But what's great about the time that I grew up in is one of the worst things is the internet, and one of the best things is the internet.
Which is still true now.
Yes, because a whole new world opened to me when I discovered that the internet held something called you can buy movies over the internet, like your own video store. And I was so amazed. Like when I first saw a Liza Minnelli movie, my heart felt so much better. And I felt like life was a little bit better because I found out who this person was. And then I started to watch James Dean movies. And I started reading about James Dean. And I had read so many books about him, from people that loved him, people that hated him, people that were just like, what the heck? And I have to tell you that he's probably, because James Dean is the reason I like Marlon Brando so much too, because he would talk about him and all of that. But James Dean was kind of cheeky when it came to sexuality and having, questions and stuff like that. He was very cheeky. And to be honest with you, I find that beautiful. And the way that he answered those questions was just wonderful. Because it was something like, well, my hands aren't tied behind my back or something. I can't remember that exactly what it is.
He doesn't want to live his life with his hands tied behind his back.
Yeah.
And I think in one question he said, well, I'm gay for pay, or something like that.
Something like that. But it was the fact that he was not denying it, but he also wasn't like saying, yeah, I'm gay. Because I don't know if he was gay or if he was whatever. But I just love the fact that I could read his words and he wasn't denying that. Whereas there were Rock Hudson, for example, did deny it. Tony Curtis did deny it. And that's okay, because that is their journey and that was their life and that was how they survived. But I think one of the reasons that I am the way that I am is because of how much I liked James Dean. And I like the fact that it's okay to not give people what they want. Because people wanted him to deny it, or people wanted him to say that. And he's like, well, why? And you have to think about how many of his friends and his coworkers and everything were in a position where they were not going to have a career if they did tell somebody they were gay. And he probably saw that. And not probably, he did see that. And it sucked. It must have sucked so much. So him saying something like that it's awesome and cheeky. And the best way to answer stupid questions.
Mm-hmm.
what is another? Oh, obviously you have to talk about like Marlene Dietrich and stuff like that. And
yes, she's a really great example. So some of my videos have done very well, particularly some videos where I've talked about like the queer tragedy of Clayface, for instance.
Beautiful.
I attract comments from dimwits who come in and say, no, none of this is true. Gayness is a new thing. And I'm like, my friend, may I direct you to Marlene Dietrich and Greta Garbo, who in movies in the 1930s and the 1940s actually full-on kissed other women. Very openly.
Oh, I remember... I keep saying I remember things because I just love some of these memories. I remember seeing that scene for the first time. I saw it again recently at a little thing at the V&A that my friend and I went to. I say a little thing, it was a great thing. When she leaned down and kissed the woman at the table, and then she comes up and she just... nothing. It's like no embarrassment, no nothing. Like, it was just... I just loved it so much. And I was watching this on TCM. I think it was TCM the first time I saw it. And oh my goodness, my heart, I saw something that was missing in my life. Like, I don't know why I felt that way, but I was like, oh my gosh, this was like 1930. I think 1930 something, wasn't it? I can't remember the exact year.
Yeah, I think so.
But I was like, this is so open. And then I look at the modern day at the time, and I was like, people are saying like, oh, that's so gay to people for an insult. And I'm like, no.
That's so 2000s.
Yeah.
People that still do that, I'm like, come on. Language has evolved since then. You can come up with something better than that.
Yeah. But I felt like it was something that I was missing in my life, where it was like an accepting thing. And when did it become not acceptable is the question that I asked later on. And I still haven't found the answer to that. But I have a feeling, a lot of feeling about it being like mass media and all of that.
Yeah, and
being a big part of it.
It's very much like the post-World War II era of conservatism, and, you know, particularly in the States with, you know, the traditional American family values and the hearings about anything that didn't promote traditional conservative values. That's very much where it stems from. Something
I never got, because I lived in the Bible Belt. I lived where at one point we had a neighbor, not the last house I lived in Oklahoma, but the one before that. We had a neighbor that had moved in. They were new and everything. And in Oklahoma, like, you introduce yourself to the neighbors and this and that. I wouldn't do that now. But this person came over and they were like, oh yeah, da 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 da. And I guess I was listening to like Ja Rule, because, you know, at the time I liked Fast and the Furious. And this woman comes over and she says something to my grandmother about my music. By the way, my grandma's jamming to it as well, okay? Like, this is, you know, this is a woman that, you know, didn't care what music it was as long as she liked it. And my grandma told me that night at dinner, when I was getting my dinner, we didn't actually sit down out dinner. She was like, yeah, that woman doesn't like your music. Because she can hear it because her room is next to my room. As in, like, my window was, you know, next to her window.
Yeah, face the window.
Yeah. And, I guess, like, not a lot of, what is it called? Soundproofing. And my grandma just started to giggle, like, literally giggle. She was like, you should turn it up a lot more tonight. And I was like, well, first off, where did she get the gall to come to my grandparents' house to talk about my music? And two, why the hell does it matter to her? And, this woman, the reason I bring her up is I met this person at school and I just fell in love with her. Not like in love, but I was like, I'm going to be her friend. Her name is Janelle, by the way. She's never going to listen to this, but her name is Janelle. And she was so open about who she was and everything. And at one point, she had a girlfriend. And I was talking about this to my cousin Candy outside because she smoked and she went on the porch to smoke. And this lady from another yard heard what we were talking about. And she was like, come on over. Because that's what Candy said, because the woman kept staring at us. And I couldn't see because my back was to her. And she did come over and she was like, you should not be talking about that. God's listening to you.
Good.
And I said to her, I don't remember how old I was, like 12, 13 years old. And I said, I know. But what is the problem? I didn't swear. Did I swear? I'm apologize if I swore. She's like, no, you didn't swear. You were talking about homosexuals. Or she saw homosexuality or something like that. And I was like, what's wrong with that? And it got to the point where I just ended up walking inside because I didn't understand. I now know why I didn't understand. Because if, neurodivergent people are like, well, it's logical not to care, Again, who do you think she went and talked to when they got home? My grandma. And this is a thing that is very much a Southern thing, where you go talk to the guardian. And it happened many times to my grandpa, and my grandpa literally just hung up on so many people. But with my grandma, she would let them talk. She would let them talk, and then she would shit talk afterwards to us about it. And I was just like, okay, like, we were just, we're shooting the shit, what was the problem? And it was in that moment where my grandpa actually explained it to me. And I was not happy about it because this is one of those conversations that never happened. Like, we never had, like, Mary, come here, we need to talk things. But that did happen that night. And it was just me and my grandpa. Because my grandma was like, I don't care. And my grandpa told me, he was like, you should probably not talk about that stuff on the porch. Like, it's fine if you, obviously, it's fine we talk about that stuff, all of this. But on the porch, it's not good because she's part of so-and-so. And I really don't want the shit from that. And when he explained what stuff he was talking about, I was like, oh, okay. And I was just pissed. And clearly, because I am this person that was just talking about her friend and her girlfriend. And it was such a lovely thing because they were both, like, really happy. They were teenagers, whatever. And my next door neighbor thought to get into my business. And being as religious as some people are in Oklahoma, it becomes a problem when you're trying to force. Religion is not a bad thing. I respect religion, but when it comes to the point where you are telling people to hate other people because of who they're friends with or who they are, that is a problem for me. And it's a problem when my grandfather has to sit me down at the kitchen table and talk to me about what shunning is and what it means that this woman could call my grandmother's work if she wanted to and get her in trouble and all of these things. I was pissed.
Well, the fact of the matter is, with religion, those rules, which, by the way, they pick and choose as they see fit, but those rules determine how they live their lives, not other people. So, all right, fair enough. If your religion says that you shouldn't be homosexual, fine. Then don't be homosexual and be a practicing member of that religion.
Yeah.
It's got nothing to do with other people, particularly people who aren't interested in your beliefs.
Like I said, my grandmother, very religious woman. Like, if she made a wrong turn and almost hit somebody or whatever, she'd kiss her hand, kiss the top of the car and say, "Love you, Jesus, sorry." She was that way when I was younger. More so when I was younger than when I was older. And like I said, her religion, but she was Christian, was very, very loving. And at no point did she ever say that it wasn't okay to be gay, because she loved people. She was quite a social person. Later on in life, not so much, but when I was younger, she was such a social person, and she liked people for who they were, not, anything else. And we stopped going to church, or I stopped going to church when I was 4 years old, because the pastor, I asked, I think about 5 questions throughout the time, and the pastor was not a very nice person, and they were very quick to dismiss me. I'm 4 years old, I have questions, and it was weird because my grandmother was very social at this church, and she loved so many people there. And I said to her on our way home, because it was just me and her, I was like, I don't ever want to go there again. And she asked me why, and she knew what the answer was going to be. And I said, because I asked questions. And I was like, he said it wasn't okay for me to ask questions, so I shouldn't do that anymore, right? She said, no, you ask questions, but if you don't want to go, that's fine. I met another pastor later in life. When I was going out with my first boyfriend, only other boyfriend other than Luke, and they went to this teen church in the mall, because that was starting to be a popular thing. And I just went there because I was going to the mall, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go get me some Sbarro, or however you say it. I didn't end up getting that pizza, but I went there, and this man spoke to me with the utmost respect. And when I had questions, talked to me. He was very vocal, and he was like, oh, okay, that's fine, but that's that. And I explained to him what happened when I was 4. And he was like, that's not okay. Like, first off, you were a child. Second, this is about love. This is about kindness. This is about, and he started quoting some things. And I was like, that's very, very interesting and very heartwarming to know that not everybody is like that. And it, blew my mind. And then I meet my in-laws, who are quite religious, loving as hell, completely different to that pastor that I met that I spoke to when I was 4. So it's not the religion in my eyes that is the problem. It is the person. And that is what kind of place I grew up in. And there were so many more people like that than I would like to admit and actually remember. But luckily, I had a grandmother and grandfather that were very, very open about, you don't hate somebody. What is the thing he used to say? He used to say something like, you don't hate somebody unless you can hate them just as much as your mama, or something like that. I don't know. It was so stupid. It was such a Southern thing. I'm babbling.
Don't hate people for what they are. Dislike them for who they are.
Oh my gosh, yes. Just something along those lines. And it's a very Southern thing. And I hear his accent right now, and it's like, you know what? That's who raised me. You might have drunk a bit too much, but
a little bit.
Yeah, you're okay sometimes. Sorry, I babbled a bit, but that's just kind of how I grew up. Like, I grew up in the Bible Belt, and I know that there are absolutely lovely religious people, and those are the people that I see when I think of Christianity, because I don't think of those nasty people that think that they are, the world leaders because they misrepresented what a religion's supposed to be, because religion is supposed to be about love, faith, honor, all of that. And I'm so, so thankful that my grandmother taught me that. Trying to think of something funny she taught me too, because I didn't want to be like, ah! So yeah, I think she's one of the reasons why I respect religion. Like, a lot of the religions that I've looked up and I've researched, I can't fault. But some people take it to the extreme, and sometimes they're wrong. Because in no religion that I've ever researched about are you supposed to hurt somebody because of who they are. As in, like, you know, who they're dating, or, you know,
if they believe something different, or if they're from a different place, etc., etc.
Yeah, because in my family, Christianity is about love, faith, honor, and, you know, there's no acceptance there. It's just you are who you are. Either I call you on the phone at 5 p.m. or I don't call you until something bad happens, you know? That's kind of like the thing I grew up with. And to end this thing now is that is how I grew up, and how, you know, sexuality was, you know, was. I didn't have to come out to my grandparents. My grandparents suspected for a very long time that I was bisexual. And not one time did they ever sit me down and say, that's wrong. Or, oh, you can't hang out with this person because they've got, you know, a girlfriend or a boyfriend or something like that. Absolutely not. They weren't saying, oh my God, we're going to throw glitter and, you know, put flags up everywhere. They weren't like that, because they were from a different time, but they certainly weren't people to dislike somebody because of their sexuality, and I appreciate that so much. So that's where I celebrate my pride. You know, I know we didn't talk about that many movies or whatever. It's more about like some of my life and all of that. But sometimes it's nice to talk about things like that because it is a part of who I am. And I have been in quite an intensive therapy for a couple of years now. And I have really started to understand that even though I have seen a lot of negative and horrible things in my life, just like so many other people, I want to kind of recoordinate, you know, recalibrate my brain. And yes, the negative happened, but I also want to remember the positive. And one positive thing is how I was raised in the regard of, like, yeah, we know she likes girls and boys. Like, we know, or, you know, telling my uncle off because, you know, he said something not the nicest thing about me. And, you know, it was a beautiful thing. And that part of my life I want people to know about because it happened. And it's so easy to talk about the negative, but to talk about, like, that part is really great too. This is probably so boring to people, but I'm going to end this now saying I'm very happy that my grandparents taught me about their religion and how it's supposed to be love, honor, faith. And when we say love, it's love everybody. Even the people that you don't like, you're supposed to love them because you always say, I'll love you, good night. And when it came to who I am as a person, I can truly say that is because of a big part of why I'm so boastful about my sexuality or being so full of pride for the queer community, is because they let me do that. They let me be me for the most part. They wouldn't let me get a tattoo until I walked in and I was there and I had one, and my grandpa told me it was shitty. So I had it redone. Okay. Sorry guys, I've got off track or whatever, but let's talk about some comments now. I don't want to talk anymore. Luke can talk.
All right, thank you, Mary. So let's go over to the first comment then. So this is from our last episode talking about Sir Patrick Stewart. Yes. And this is Lowell Lucas Jr. who says it's time for Pat Stew Day on Totally Schway. Now let's all party with the head of the CIA. Deputy Director, I think you'll find. Mutant King of Strippers will save, will save the day. Greet the day on Totally Schway. I just want to thank you all for the well wishes yet again. Always warms my heart and encourages me as I get through my week. Thank you all. My eyes are still in pain at moments, so I take my time each day. Now on to our favourite stew, beef stew.
I have a question for Lowell. I know that your eyes hurt, but I have a couple questions. Are you pregnant? Is it, have you turned it on and off? And what is another one that people say?
Oh, the doctors always say, first thing they say is, oh, you could do with losing some weight.
Yeah,
maybe it'll go away. It's like, yeah, cool. Lose weight and the cancer will go away. Yeah, thanks, doctor.
Yeah, that's what they say to women. I know you're not a...
No, they say it to men as well.
Oh, do they?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know.
It's literally the first thing they say to everyone.
Yeah.
Like, someone I work with is having medical problems, and he's actually very slim. And the first thing the doctor suggested was, oh, maybe you could lose some weight. And that's not going to help with his illness.
Obviously, I'm joking. I just wanted to actually ask those questions to somebody for once, rather than, oh, I have because when I had an eye problem, literally the first thing they asked me was like, oh, are you expecting? No.
What does pregnancy randomly cause blindness now? Yeah. Right.
Anyways, I digress.
This podcast is already long, and we haven't even finished the first comment. So anyway, first comment. Patrick Stewart, one of the few actors I hold in high regard with James Earl Jones. It's a shame you two have never met on screen together, as far as I know, but it would have been legendary. Both actors are not allowed to play something low-key unless it suits their fancy.
I would love that duo.
For if Patrick isn't a scene-stealing knight, fencing, a lovely Amy Yazbek Men in Tights, head of a mutant school for gifted children, or hunting the infernal white whale, he's happily causing mischief in the CIA and speaks for the strippers. Mm-hmm. In short, the man can do no wrong with acting and is always a delight no matter the medium, even playing poo in the Emoji movie. I know you said emoji then.
I forgot about that movie.
Yes, yeah, well, didn't everyone? Apart from Lowell Lucas Jr., clearly. It's kind of funny, back when Wizard Magazine used to predict who would play who, Pat Stewart had always been voted as our favourite professor. He's just too spot on. And even Boris Vallejo, Boris Vallejo's, Jesus, I'm struggling. No, Vallejo. So if that's Spanish, that would be Vallejo. Vallejo? I don't know. Anyways, I apologise. I've got derailed again. Sorry, it's really hot in here and my brain isn't working properly at the moment.
I don't have an excuse. I don't have an excuse for my brain not working.
Anyway, it was a painting of Professor X for the Fleer X-Men 95 trading card set. Had a very distinctive look of him that echoed only Patrick Stewart could play him. You'll probably laugh at this, but I only knew of Sir Patrick Stewart after Pirates of Dark Water on TNT. Back then, my mother was a huge fan of Picard and got me to watch it. I wasn't the biggest fan of Star Trek, but I did enjoy the actors' chemistry and delivery. Kind of funny I'd see them again in Gargoyles a few years later. I will add, I did have one bad experience with Old Man Logan featuring Pat Stew. You see, I was doing a sketch and draw at a comic shop called Escape Velocity back when they were by the IMAX theatre. The staff and I talked about Pat Stew's performance, and I jokingly added how he was Director Bullock the entire time in the film, and we all laughed. Unfortunately, one staffer got offended and turned red real quick. He screamed his grandmother had dementia and died. I assured him that wasn't my intent with my comment and apologised, but by then he ruined the mood in the room, to which I decided to just leave. I never went back to the store and only bring up the Bullock comparison in good company. Yeah, that's an odd reaction to have.
Yeah.
You know, my grandmother died. In fact, my grandfather had dementia as well, and I wouldn't go, oh, Lowell Lucas Jr., how could you? No, very, very silly overreaction. I thought
the joke was funny.
Yeah, and the comparison is accurate, because it's the same actor. Yeah. Jesus Christ. I'm not very tolerant today, I apologise. Still, hopeful none of you had to go through... Yeah, unfortunately we did. And may your experiences with our favourite mutant be worthwhile and fun. To end, let me share a favourite line from the delicious Pap Stew. Lap dances, champagne dances, shower dances, oh, the things you can buy with a handful of bills. It makes me excited, it gives me the chills. There'll be filch-arounds, breeders, ham bones and tweezers, elbows and debos and blobs that go Ena. For a $1 bill, you can pull down their zippers. I am a Snorax, I speak for the strippers. 663 Mr. Pibb with vanilla ice creams equals best damn shake. Thank you for your comment, Lower Lucas Jr.
I should try that one day. But I don't know where I could get some Mr. Pibb over here.
I always thought it was a fictional drink, but
no, it's completely, and it's delicious if you like sugary drinks. But I don't like sugary drinks, so.
Yes. All right, on to the next comment, which is from RJ Productions, who says, when I read the title, I'd forgotten what it was about, and I legit thought we were going to talk about Patrick Starr for some reason. Also, at 3 minutes and 40 seconds, the movie Jeffrey sounds like it should be a psychological origin story based on Jeff the Killer, lol lol lol. Which is funny when you talked about Logan, because filmmaker Sean Norris from the now retired channel Zom Leader Studios, which are not only for their creepypasta short films, was going to make an epilogue Jeff the Killer film that was inspired by Logan before it was cancelled. Edit. I hope you guys are doing well. As for me, I've started speaking to someone I've matched with romantically on a friend-finding dating app called Hickey, which is specifically for neurodivergent people like me, for a few months, who I'm hoping to meet in person someday. I've just been in a play production with my social group at Medina Theatre, which adapts Mary Poppins, where I played the character Uncle Albert and added my own quirky Jim Carrey-like flair to the character. I had an anxiety attack, but my friend who's playing Mary calmed me down and comforted me, which really helped. Also, I've just come back from Butlins, and it was a blast.
Your friend Mary sounds awesome.
Oh, yes.
And then from another Mary, by the way.
And then at the 51 minutes and 07 seconds, in the wise words of Homer Simpson, just because I don't care doesn't mean I don't understand.
I love that, though. Yeah. I love that.
Right, so let's move on to the next comment, which is from Big Mikey P. And yes, there is another. Oh, no, excuse me, it's not. It's someone else who has stolen the crown from Big Mikey P for a lengthy comment.
Have you phoned the police?
I know. There's been a burglary. No, the comment is actually from Doc Widener, who says, thank goodness you're here. This week,
he's here.
This week in spending money I don't have. Ha! Yeah, tell me about it.
I was about to say, are you Luke?
I have some well guys coming out to look at my cloudy, sometimes almost muddy water. It is a very fine silt that's getting in, possibly from a rusted or cracked casing. They tried limiting the pump and tried turning down the pressure. They even had me bypass the softener and run water for hours to try and clear it up. It got clearer, but not clear. May need a new well, which I have not been given an estimate for, but will not be cheap.
No.
I sent a picture. The clearer water was running the hose for about 10 hours. The dirtier was from today.
Wells, they cause so much issue.
For a hole in the ground.
And they're so expensive. If something goes wrong with them, I'm so glad that I lived in a city. I mean, we weren't supposed to drink the drinking water, but...
Yeah, which you didn't tell me, by the way. So if I end up getting cancer 10 years from now, then we'll know what happened.
But, I have heard so many stories, from my uncle that lived, a bit north of us, had well water, and oh my God, every year something would go wrong. Mm. And I just remember the frustration. So I'm so sorry, Doc.
On the good news front, Daniel turned 14 on Friday.
Yeah!
Thanks for the call out. He was sheepishly appreciative. Saturday we went to COSI, the Centre of Science and Industry up in Columbus. Daniel likes to go because he likes to hang out in a part of the museum called Gadgets. It is very hands-on part of the museum, loud, windy in spots with magnetic gears and spinning tables and ball launchers. It is loud and by far Sergei's least favourite part of the place. Sergei wanted to go up for one of the travelling exhibits, this time a private Star Wars collector's exhibit of their collection. It was impressive, though most of the big stuff like the costumes, weapons, lasers and speeder bikes and ships, full-size X-Wing and TIE Advanced, were recreations and not actual props. But that did mean we got to sit on the speeder bike. Sent pictures again, as is my habit, and a link to the album. My apologies for what looks almost like duplicates, but it is my method to try to get pictures of Daniel looking at the camera and smiling. It is like trying to find a four-leaf clover. Possible but rare. Sergei likes the camera and the camera likes him.
Don't you ever apologize for sending pictures. They're always wonderful.
I was happy happy all the local No Kings events and pretty much all the No Kings marches across the country were big and peaceful. In Columbus, it coincided with planned Pride marches. I think we got the best possible outcome with it being cancelled when the US Army birthday parade was sparsely attended. I will say the various era uniforms and equipment looked nice and gave some insight into the history of the organisation this parade was supposed to be for. I will say all the costumes and the wigs early on made me wonder if it was in fact a Pride parade. Well, yes, quite. Alas, some of the shine was taken off because of the unfortunate coincidence of the current POTUS having the same birthday as the Army, and the fact that there is a video of Army soldiers handing out Form energy drinks to attendees. Form is partially owned by the UFC guy Dana White, and both Form and UFC sponsored this, and Coinbase. So, yeah, no conflicts of interest. And now on to what I'm supposed to have been commenting on. Oh, actually, I enjoyed Mary's Fuggler's post on the Substack this week. My apologies for your bank account.
Don't you worry. I have bought more plushies as well.
I was introduced to Star Trek by watching Those Old Scientists, if you know, you know, in syndication after school when I was 7, so in the mid to late 70s. The Next Generation came on when I was in high school. Was a bit of a bumpy start, but eventually got there. 3 seasons of Picard. Season 1, the one where Picard dies and comes back as a replicant. Season 2, the one where Q, who suggested he is now dying, sends Picard to the dark timeline where we find out Picard's father was Gaius Baltar from the Battlestar Galactica reboot, and his mother suffered from terminal mental health issues. And we get a new version of Kind Borg at the end. Then in Season 3, which ditched most of the cast from the first 2 seasons and gave the old fans the Next Generation reunion season that Patrick Stewart originally said he didn't want to do when Picard was announced. I agree with Mary that X2 is probably the best of that era of X-Men films. So you're lumping all of the X-Men films together? Logan, if we're talking about everything, then X2, then Days of Future Past. Won't bore you with a full list. American Dad. I know you play Minecraft. I can't recall if you play Fortnite. We do not. Have to say the trailer for Hank Hill, Cleveland Brown and Bob Belcher being added into Fortnite was funny. It's not as funny as the Spaceballs 2 trailer. Do you know, I've not seen either of those things, actually. I know that they existed, but I've not watched them. My phone battery died at COSI before they rolled it in. Need to have Sergey forward pics to me so that I can forward them to Mary by the time you read this. They had a drag racing vehicle from a driver that has the world record for these vehicles, going 330 miles an hour, 531 kilometers per hour. The driver has a trans flag on his racing suit and the car was rainbow coloured. Sergey made a quip about it being a real drag racing vehicle. Yes, badum-tsh. I'm glad to hear Lowell is doing better, and congrats on getting published, brother. Those Hammer films are great. As a kid, I preferred the Universal versions of the stories, but as I got older, while I still have a place in my heart for them, sometimes the Hammer ones do a better job telling the story. When you have Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee, it's hard to screw something up. Happy belated Americans Father's Day to the dads out there. Should have written this 2 weeks ago. I'm going to leave it there because I saw something related to the span between Mother's Day and Father's Day that would do nothing but annoy the crap out of you two, because it has me. So let me counter that with an empathetic, Happy Pride. A new CD dual cassette boombox in the 90s was like $300.
Yeah, so expensive.
Nope, Luke, I stand corrected. You watched enough Gargoyles. Yeah, I know. The final season was rough. It had studio meddling written all over it. The first 2 seasons were great. Yeah, first 2 seasons were fine. I really couldn't finish that last season. It just felt like such a slog. 663, probably Mr. Pibb, but it has been a long time since I've had either one. Enjoyed our brunch, granted myself an indulgence for Father's Day, and made a couple of store-brand versions of Pillsbury cinnamon rolls in the waffle maker. Oh, that sounds good. Not bad, a little messy with the cinnamon sauce and way more sugar than I should have, but as a one-time thing, it's interesting. Thank you for your comment, Doc.
You said cinnamon. I'm in. I do love cinnamon. To the point at Costco this morning, we bought like a pound of cinnamon.
It wasn't very expensive, though, was it?
No.
It's probably not very good quality either. But that's a topic for another time. Okay, next we have David Carney, who says, "Hi, Mary and Luke. I'm a huge Star Trek fan. I find it hard to pick a favourite captain because they all have different qualities. Avery Bullock is my favourite character in American Dad.
Yeah.
Better than Principal Lewis. Ooh.
Better than Steve?
Oh, I hate Steve. It was in Frasier where his character Alistair was dating Frasier. There's some elements from Star Trek The Next Generation that were used in Buffy. Have a good weekend, both. You too, David. Thank you for your comment, as ever." I always appreciate the brief comments. You know, people that are able to succinctly get their point across and fill our hearts with warmth.
I like the really long ones.
Well, you're going to be happy because here's Big Mikey P.
Yes!
Who says, sorry for the lateness. Oh my God, he was late as well. Can you believe it? Unbelievable.
Michael!
It's fine. It's literally fine. You know, we record these a couple of weeks after the last episode. You got plenty of time to drop a comment. Don't worry about it. We're joking.
We're doing it a little bit late today, but it's fine.
Yeah, because I'm so behind on my videos. I'm literally like sweating buckets trying to get stuff done in time. But anyway,
I was just watching like TikTok.
Yeah, I know.
In the aircon.
Anyway, can I get on with Big Mikey P's comment, please?
Sure, if you want to.
So he says YouTube did its magic again by not making the comment get through until I edited its lots. Seems YouTube shares my opinion.
Shut up, Luke.
Interesting, the channel profile pic has become a collab with Serum Lake's main channel. Well, I'm glad somebody noticed that because we've been... I think we're allowed to talk about this. They said we could.
No, I don't know. I didn't read it.
Well, we've been beta testing a new feature for YouTube where you can set your collab videos as actual collaborations between two channels, and anyone who watches it can see both profiles. I'm going to be doing that with the podcast for as long as the feature is turned on for us. Both podcasts, I should say. And yeah, I think it's a fun thing.
Yeah, we're so collabing in a video. It's me talking, but a Superman video that's going to be coming up. Probably
within the next week, probably maybe 10 days, something like that. I mean, I am editing it as well, which is another thing I need. Yeah, it's another reason why I need to get it done. But anyway, yes, that's a fun thing that we're doing. We've been testing a lot of features for YouTube, actually. Like I mentioned, the auto dubbing. I've got that new community setting, which actually I think is eligible for you now as well.
I made £5.60.
What?
In the past 3 months on my YouTube. Am I allowed to talk about it? Because I remember used to not be allowed to, but I think you can.
No, you're allowed to talk about it. It's just most people choose not to talk about how much money they make.
I'm large and in charge.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, the podcasts don't generate a huge amount of traffic, but it's really good engagement from the people that are invested. Like people really leaving comments.
It's fun.
So it's not about the money, it's about having conversations with people.
My friends.
Exactly.
Y'all actually listen to me sometimes.
And with that in mind, I'm going to have to stop making fun of Big Mikey P because he's one of our biggest contributors and has been for a long time.
Yeah, we like Big Mikey.
He's certainly contributed multiple novels in the comments if we added them all together. So.
And I hope you do realize that we now own these properties, and we are going to put an actual tome out. Excuse me, not tomb.
The writings of Big Mikey P. Yeah. Oh my! Should we do that? We shouldn't do that. It's just going to be full of like timestamps saying it 2 minutes and 47 seconds.
What would we dedicate it to?
To Big Mikey P.
No, the chickens. We have to dedicate it to the chickens.
Anyway, I want to finish this comment because oh my God, we're over an hour. We're over an hour, Mary. Right. Far as I heard, the Next Generation is greater than the original series and Picard. However, Deep Space Nine is a bigger thing in terms of quality, although I'm more forward on it. Its properly finished counterpoint Babylon 5. Okay, yeah, I understand. As an aside, Captain Kirk's moment in Generations movie is befitting the character in hindsight. Yes, they dropped a bridge, hence a certain trope, but at least the character saved people because it's what he does best, and he knows it's right. Reminds some of Chewbacca on the new Jedi Order novels. Speaking of novels adapted into movies, I hope that the upcoming book-accurate Starship Troopers movie would be quite good. Can admit X-Men 1, 2, First Class, Days of Future Past, Logan and the first two Deadpool films are fine X-Men films. The Last Stand and Apocalypse also have their moments too, particularly the latter's Quicksilver Super Speed Rescue with Sweet Dreams playing. 55 minutes and 51 seconds, nearing completion on the Kenobi novel and a few short tales connected to it. However, after that, we'll be taking a literary reading hiatus from Star Wars Legends for Ahab's White Whale and the just-started Halo The Fall of Reach, the 2010-2011 version with the Halo Reach game lore, and Emily of New Moon shall be binge-read. 56 minutes and 17 seconds. No progress on the Anne of Green Gables anime again, but have just seen to Girls und Panzer Episode 5. Aura Eyes has gotten... Oh my god, I've mispronounced that, haven't I? Anyway... ORI ORIs has just gotten their first tank takedown against Saunders, and the battle shall continue to episode 6. But first we'll check out OVAs 1 and 2 and episode 5.5 recap episode. 59 minutes and 32 seconds. It's true, there's even Stitch, a Japanese anime sequel to the American animated movies and TV series featuring Okinawa and yokai. Even got aired in places like the Philippines via the Ocean dub. Some may know them as voice actors from Beast Wars, Transformers, Warhammer 40,000, Dawn of War, and the superlative anime dubs like Black Lagoon and Death Note. As for Lilo and Stitch's recent live-action remake, I'm ignoring the discourse, and I think it may get vindicated by history due to relatability.
They just announced, I don't know if it was today or yesterday, they announced that it's getting a sequel.
Yes, yeah, I imagine it did very well. Can understand if Luke has a hard time with Gargoyles Avalon arc, also third season is non-canon, so skip it. Mr. Reeves is also a Star Wars legend novel author with works like Darth Maul, Shadowhunter and the Coruscant Knights trilogy, and also Steve Perry collaborations like the Medusa duology and Death Star. Yes, God bless Michael Reeves, who is no longer with us. He suffered a terrible disease that basically left him trapped inside of his own body, unable to communicate. And he used to write a blog. He would only write, maybe a couple of paragraphs, but it would take him weeks to just type out these little tiny paragraphs with the help of his daughter. They were very insightful. Sometimes they were quite depressing. Sometimes they were quite hopeful. And I hope they remain online for the foreseeable future. But yes, anyway. To continue Big Mikey P's comment, so 1 hour, 6 minutes and 48 seconds. If only Marvel bravely said, Kriff the Empire or Kark the Empire, fight the Empire feels a bit generic in a non-Star Wars sense. We'll check the next video as usual later on. Thank you for your comment, Big Mikey P. That was much shorter than usual. Are you, well, I guess I was going to ask if you were well, but I think it's YouTube forcing you to edit it so that it would get through. Curious how they do that. There've been lots of weird little glitches with YouTube comments. But what can you do about it? Okay, so on to the last comment, which is from Ryan Jones, who says, I find Patrick Stewart to be one of the most extraordinary actors ever. Did you know he was in the Emoji Movie? Some people say it's the worst mainstream animated movie ever, but I don't agree with that. I find Norm of the North to be worse because of its animation. The toxic YouTube, who I used to watch, said in his review of the movie that Sony Animation would be better off dead, which is very despicable. Also, he would love to break into the animation industry by voice acting and hope he never makes it into the industry because he won't help the animators in need. I loved Postman Pat when I was little. My favourite Postman Pat moment was a Mr. Bean episode called Mind the Baby, Mr. Bean, in which he puts the baby in the accidentally kidnapped in a coin-operated kiddie Postman Pat ride at the beach. You can find the clip of it on YouTube.
Postman Pat, Postman Pat,
so that was the last comment as I slowly have my brain leak out of my ear because it's melted. If you left a comment and we didn't read it out, it's not because we're ignoring it, it's just because it hasn't showed up. And as Big Mikey P mentioned, there are problems with YouTube comments for some reason that we don't fully understand. But yeah, always worth coming back later on and double checking to see if your comment's still there, if in doubt. All right. That's it, we're done, Mary. I can't remember what next week's about or next time's about.
I did want to mention, if I ended up talking too much about certain topics or whatever, I apologize if that's not your thing. But sometimes I just like to get a bit more personal, and I hope that's okay. Because I do see you guys as my friends, and I like to be able to keep the conversation open. And I know that the people that watch this and comment on it are people that I have grown to love, and I cherish the things that you guys say, and I really appreciate you guys for who you are, and I love it.
So while Mary was talking, I was able to check our little release schedule spreadsheet, and I've seen what the next episode is about.
Is it Jimmy Olsen?
No.
Oh.
That's totally Schway. We're going to talk about Jimmy Olsen,
okay.
the DC animated Jimmy Olsen.
Okay.
The next episode of Totally Schway Flipside is hot news. It's going to be a fresh topic. It's going to be James Gunn's Superman movie. Because we'll have watched it by that point.
Yeah.
And do you know what? Some of you may not have seen it by that point. So I would recommend don't listen to the podcast until after you've seen it, if you care about spoilers, because we're going to talk about all of it.
And if you want to see all of the merch that I will probably purchase,
goodness, yeah.
I'll probably put that on the Substack as well, because I'm trying to do once a week at least. I will get better with putting more, because I think I've got a few things that I want to pop up on there in terms of like Superman merch. And also show you guys some of the stuff I got from the festival we're going to next week as well.
Oh yeah, that's something we should have said.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to London Film and Comic Con, and I'm going to go and meet Ron Perlman.
I'm so happy about that.
Yeah, I decided to do it on a whim while we were waiting for our car to get serviced. Yeah, because I've got a really nice animation cell from the BTAS episode Mudslide just before Clayface dies, and I thought, do you know what, I'm going to get Ron Perlman to sign it, because I put off seeing Kevin Conroy for a second time, and he died shortly after the last time he came to the UK. It's a coincidence, by the way. We didn't do anything, but it's something I regret. So we'll go and see Ron Perlman, and I'll tell him how much he traumatized me, and I bet he'll just look at me like I'm an idiot.
I bet you he'll laugh, because we're friends, remember, Ron and I.
Oh yeah, he tweeted you at least twice.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah. This was like 15 years ago. Yeah. So we're best friends. Like I think of him as a brother. So yeah. Yeah, but that's all for today, guys. I hope you are enjoying the summertime, and I'm gonna go and touch my cat's toes right now because he's sleeping, and he woke me up in the middle of the night last night, so I'm gonna wake him up as much as I can. I love you, and I can't wait to watch Superman.